Welcome to the next session in our video conferencing training sessions. We're going to run through our Evo Cable Guide product today, cap off a few important things that you should know about Evo in general, and then we'll go through the Evo Cable installation. So what we're going to do firstly to kick off this session is spend a bit of time, I guess, talking about some of the sales components that are important for you to know when you're selling this particular product. Now, Evo for us is obviously a very successful product. We've had it in our product range for about 6 years now. It comes in various styles, and we will focus on the Evo Cable today. But some of the key things that are worth remembering are things like we make it 5 meters wide. We'll make it up to 4 meters in drop. So it really covers those fairly big expanses where you want that contemporary style straight drop awning, either in a head box or without a head box, whether it be cable, STC, or whichever. Now, for a long while, our standard component color was silver pearl. We still have that as a standard stock component color, but last October we introduced 4 new off-the-shelf component colors. Mombasa, which matches to night sky, which is your black. Thundercloud, which is our gray. Chardonnay and your lumber, which are the cream and the beige. So we've introduced those colors as standard stocked componentry. So that means head box, side channel if you're ordering it, and obviously bottom rail are available ex stock in those standard colors. Great thing is there's no surcharge for those colors. The other great thing is it's a quicker turnaround time. We don't have to send out mill finished componentry, have it powder coated, then brought back for assembly. We've got those colors. The other thing we also did last September, October, was that we revamped our Everscreen external screen range. We had a 10% open weave fabric, and the market was calling for something of a tighter weave. So we introduced 5%. We moved away completely from 10% and introduced our 5% open weave Everview Plus range. Now, we also introduced 5 of those key colors in a 1%. So again, giving us that even tighter weave for those areas where privacy maybe is more of an issue, or they really want to cut out more light, have that better UV glare protection. The 1% is there as an option for you as well. Now, there's lots of different install options when you fit an Evo. And when you order them from us, it's important to let us know where you're mounting it, whether it's on face, whether it's ceiling fit, whether it's in reveal. All those sort of things help us configure the product correctly when we manufacture it, particularly if you're ordering it with a head box. Control options. You have obviously your crank, which is your standard operation for this product, but there are various motorization options. Somfy, most of you are quite familiar with the Somfy options, the standard RTS motors, the Logia Somfy motor. If you're using locking bolts and want a tension fabric, then the Somfy Logia motor is the Somfy product to use. We have our merger low-cost motors, which have proved very successful. They're fairly simple to set up and program. They're also covered by our 5-year warranty. You then have our PowerView option for Evo as well. Obviously, the PowerView product, as you would know, is that new 6-channel remote that you can put in the Pebble, very stylish. It can be operated through the PowerView app as well when you introduce a hub, which is a little, I guess, blind home automation system. So you can now control an Evo awning through a hub and through an app, just as you would control soft shades. We also introduced our Photon 1, which was our solar-powered motor option for Evo. Probably the most popular product as far as motorized Evo that we've seen in the last 3 or 4 months. Great thing about it is there's no need for an electrician to attend. You have the motor installed in the actual roller tube. You've got solar panel, you've got a battery pack, and you have our, at the moment, older style remote. It's all plug and play, low voltage stuff that any installer can set up on site. We are in the process of making an installation video or a programming video for that product. We hope to have that on Alfie very soon. So what our plan now is to actually go through the installation process of fitting the Evo cable. We're going to be fitting an Evo open roller cable here, so it won't have a head box. But there are head box options that you probably have seen and that you've sold with Evo. I might just cap off one thing which does sometimes catch people out. We refer to a head box as being either open or closed. In most circumstances, you're going to purchase or order a closed head box. I might just grab these and show these. So the closed head box, and I've only got the front part of the head box here, not the backing plate. So a closed head box is where the head box, obviously, put it the right way, I help, where it locates into the actual back part of the head box, it comes down and it comes across the bottom. So when you've got a roll and you're standard rolling, obviously this is the closed head box and the head box that you would call up. Now, if you want to forward roll or reverse roll your Evo cable, you can still put that in a head box by calling up the open head box. So that's an option there as well. Now, we'd also use that, and we do use that, if you're buying an Evo pivot arm, because the fabric comes off the roll and comes out at an angle. So we obviously can't have a closed head box. It's also the head box that we use if you're calling up clear PVC for your Evo of any style, but not something that we sell a lot of, and we generally promote and push our screen fabrics for Evo. As I said, any comments or questions you want to flick through at any point throughout the presentation, please do that. It doesn't interrupt what I'm going to do, but they'll go to Trevor and he can then feed them through to me and we'll answer those questions for you. So we're now going to install our Evo cable awning. Now, obviously the first thing you're going to do, particularly if you've received this awning and you've ordered it in a head box, is that you'll unpack it all and you'd remove the roller, which has got the fabric on it, and put it to the side. Now, if you've ordered any Evo with a head box, the brackets will be configured in the head box in the direction that you've specified as far as your fitting application. When you fit a head box and the brackets are in there, you must always fit through the bracket. You cannot just fit through the head box, you must secure the awning through the end mount brackets. Now, Evo awnings can be quite heavy if they're quite large, and all the weight is borne by those brackets. So if you only fit through the head box and you've got a large awning, you could potentially pull those brackets out of the head box. Absolutely fine to put extra mountings along the head box every metre or so. If you've got the ability to do it, I would recommend it, as long as you've still fitted through the brackets at the end. So, as I said, today's install is brackets only. And for cable guide, predominantly that's the bulk of what we do. Cable guide, open roller. So we're going to fit that here. I also want to point out something else here. Because we've chosen here the top fix, we're not face fitting, we're reveal sealing or top fit fixing. There's an extra plate that needs to be supplied to enable us to secure our cable in the right point. This plate comes under two scenarios. One, if we're top fitting, and two, if we're forward rolling. It enables us to bring the cable to the front. Now this, we call it an extension plate, is about 2 millimeters thick. If you try to add them later, you will find, particularly in a reveal scenario, thanks Trev, you will find in a reveal scenario, you may actually have trouble squeezing those plates in. They're only 2 millimeters thick, but you will get one either side, and 2 millimeters could make a difference whether that awning will fit in a reveal. So it's really important that you tell us that you're top fitting or that you're forward rolling. It's very important that you do that. So what we're going to do now is fit the brackets. I've already pre-assembled one bracket. I've pre-assembled one cable. We're going to go to the other side of the display stand here and we're going to fit the other one. So I'll quickly do that. Now, one thing we don't supply with Evo is we don't supply any fixtures for you to fit the awning to your structure, whether it's brick, concrete, steel, timber. The fixings that you need to fix the components to the house or to the structure are all listed. The recommended fixtures are in our SkillTech manual and in the installation manual for Evo, but they're not supplied from us. We'll supply all the screws and all the fixings to assemble the product, but the substrate fixings need to be supplied at your end. Now, we've obviously built this little installation house here so we can install and remove product time and time again. So I do have the luxury of already having this preset with my mount points that I can screw into. So, you know, we're using inserts into the house structure here, which is not something you'll see in a normal circumstance. So what I've done is I've actually put the bracket up. I've got the other bracket there sitting ready to go. Now, getting the cable nice and level is pretty important. Obviously, it's going to look right if it looks level, and it needs to travel well. So we recommend using a laser level, spirit level, or a string line from your cable mounting point to the bottom to make sure that your cable is obviously going to be vertical. Now, the next thing we're going to do here is actually fit, we've dropped a string line, we're actually going to fit our bottom cable bracket. I'm just going to put that down and come back to that, because what I want to show you is what you get when you actually get your Evo Cable Guide awning. And in a plastic bag, in a separate little kit, you're going to have 2 complete cable sets. Now, this cable set gives you 5 meter length of 316 stainless cable, gives you your bottom mounting bracket, gives you your top mounting assembly. This top mounting assembly needs to be fitted to your top bracket. You'll see it, if we just zoom back in up here, if we could, Trev. You can see that fitted there to the bracket. You also have, again, we refer to this as a floating guide. These are the prongs that will lock into your bottom rail through the end cap. And you'll see when you look at your bottom rail on your Evo cable, there's 2 holes pre-drilled that will slide over those 2 prongs. So that's what you get in your cable kit, 2 of those. And what you'll need to do is, and I'll just quickly throw this back together. You'll need to remove your cable. Takes me longer to put it back together than it does to pull it apart. So I won't actually screw the cable on, but your cable will be fitted through your bottom bracket around a barrel. You want to undo the cable and remove the cable. You want to take out that little threaded with an Allen key rounded head, remove that from the barrel. Now the reason we're taking this apart is so we can get to the fixing points to secure this barrel. Cables never lay flat. So what you'll need to do, there's a little E-clip that holds this barrel in place. So just with a pair of long nose pliers, just remove that E-clip. They generally come out reasonably easy. Once that clips out, you can take that barrel out. So you'll end up with a piece looking like this. This is our bottom mounting bracket to secure all the fixings for the cable. So I've dropped the string line, put that in place. I'm quickly just going to secure that down there. Again, I've got fixings that are already in place. Might get you to drop to that position, Trev. Now, there's 2 fixing points. There's 2 screws that need to hold this in place. you must fit both. When you've got the cable here and you've got it locked in at the top and you're taking up tension on the cable, there can be a lot of pressure on that point. And we certainly don't recommend that one fixing is enough, which is why we have to take the components apart so we can fit the two screws in. Now, they need to be countersunk. And they need to be countersunk so that once I've got all the cable assembly back together, I can obviously get it through and I'm not hitting the head of a bolt or the head of a screw. So two countersunk fixings, 40 gauge, sorry, not 40 gauge, 12 gauge, I beg your pardon, 40 millimeters in length. So that's what we do there. So I fitted that then, removed the barrel, as I said, so I can fit that bracket. Now, once that bracket is fixed, we're actually going to put the cable and that slide-in barrel back together. Now, you'll see here, the barrel that we slide on has got a lip on it. Now, that lip faces the fabric. Obviously, in this scenario here where we're in a reveal, you couldn't put it in any other way anyway, but that's the piece that faces the fabric. So I'm going to put that in there. I'm going to get my E-clip and just clip that on to hold it in place. So that's held in place. So then I've got the two parts of the cable, which I'm now going to put in place. So I'm going to bring one part through the bottom. Now, the bottom of that does have an Allen key head. You can actually put an Allen key in that to turn it, but you really only need to get a couple of threads started on it. So generally, you can just do it a couple of turns with your fingers, just to get that cable started. So there, I've got that cable started, and I've got it secured at the bottom, ready to be secured through the top. It's important at this point that you make sure you thread your floating guide on. If you forget to put that over the cable and you've secured the cable at the top, you'll have to undo it to put it on. So at this point, slide that on and just let it drop into position. Now, up the top here, where our bracket is, we have this casting at the back, which will enable us to thread the cable through. Just hold it with a little bit of tension. And I have the luxury of being able to put my hand around the back of the house here, which you probably won't have in most circumstances. And I'm just going to nip up that, which I can't see. So I'm going to have to just quickly stand in front of you for 1 second. So hopefully you can see here, that's just a 4mm Allen key just to tighten that up. Now, we want that to be pretty tight because when we tension that cable at the bottom, we're going to want to get a reasonable amount of tension on that cable. As I said, the cables come 5 meters in length. You're always going to be cutting some cable. Don't cut it too close. You want to leave about 100 millimeters of cable in case you need to release it to do something. Now, when you cut this cable, I think it's really important that you use a set of high quality cable cutters. You'll struggle to cut them with just snips or wire cutters. I've seen some installers use an angle grinder. If you invest in a really high quality set of cable cutters, it'll give you a nice clean cut every time. It's definitely something worthwhile having in your toolkit. All right, the next thing we do, we've done all that, we've fitted it in place. We're going to cover, all right, and my prompt sheets have somehow gone out of sequence, so we might come back. Okay. So the next thing that we'll do here, I know I still haven't installed the roller tube here yet, which is fine. I've already set this one up and pre-tensioned it, so I'm just going to put a bit of tension on this cable here, so we've got that set. Now, what you'll need to do is, again with your pair of long nose pliers, just hold the top of the cable and adjust the bottom piece here so that we make that cable nice and taut. Now it'll usually let you do some turns without needing to hold with the pliers, so I'll do what I can and then I will use my little long nose pliers to hold that in place. So I've just got the cable reasonably taut. Down the bottom here as well, you'll see some lock nuts. Now these lock nuts are there so that as vibration comes through the system, if there's a bit of wind or a bit of breeze on the product, these lock nuts here are there to make sure that the cable can't work its way loose. Obviously the bottom cable gets threaded to the bottom, the top one gets threaded to the top, and again they get nipped up and they act as lock bolts, or lock nuts I should say. So they will stop that cable from coming loose. So the bottom one here, move my hand, and the top one there. Okay. Now what we'll do is, we'll get our awning and we'll install our roller tube. Now, I recommend take the idle pin out, have it in your hand. Because what can happen if that little black O-ring, I might just show that actually, Trev, I'll zoom in. On that idle end pin, you'll see a black O-ring. There's two little recesses in that pin. That black O-ring sits in the shallower of the two pins because the deeper recess is the bit that locks into the bracket. The little black O-ring is just there so that it doesn't accidentally fall inside the roller tube. Because if it does, you'll be unrolling the awning and drilling out the rivets and taking off the end caps and having to slide, obviously, that out of the tube. So we'll pop this up. Little awnings can tend to be a little bit tricky, so if I just jiggle that, it should nicely go in. Little awnings are always harder to put in place because it's a reasonably tight fit within the reveal. And it's decided not to play nicely with me this time. And it's not going to go in, so I'm going to take it out. Just turn it and see if it'll go in at another point. So yeah, so it can sometimes take a bit of jiggling if you've got a really narrow awning, as you can see by that one. At that point, I'll pop the idle pin in and I locate that in position. Trevor's just brought up to me a can of silicone spray. We did put a bit of silicone spray on this when we did it yesterday. Probably should have done the same thing today. Just sliding that shaft in when it's got to go at a more acute angle than we want to is not always easy. So, but we've got it in. The really important thing now, guys, this R-clip is a critical part that has to go in, and I'm sure you wouldn't forget to put it in, but the R-clip secures the roller tube in the brackets. It goes in, just means the awning can't fall out now. So the awning is up, the awning's in the brackets, the cables are tensioned. What I need to do next is fit my floating guides into the bottom rail. To do that, I'm just going to roll the awning most of the way down. And I'm just going to lift up the bottom rail and slide that in. Now you'll see the other one when I do it on the other side. I know this particular one there is probably out of camera shot, but this one you'll see it here. So I'm going to lift the bottom rail, just lift up the cable floating guide, and you can see I'm just getting it at the angle to be able to push that in. Now you can see those prongs, those floating prongs are now quite long. So they really do allow even a large, wide Evo cable to float within that cable if we haven't been able to get a perfectly square cable arrangement. That's it. We can cycle that awning up and down a couple of times, get the fabric positioned on the roller tube, centered where you want it to be, because we have moved it around a bit. Now, I want to talk about locking bolts. We've got the awning fitted. You probably saw those locking bolts sliding around a little bit as I was tilting the awning about. We've got a bottom cable assembly which will allow you to lock the locking bolts into. But you need to be careful to make sure that if you want to do that, you have to floor fit or face fit. That bracket can be turned and fitted directly on a reveal, which is fine if you don't want to have locking bolts. But if you want to have locking bolts and you've got a reveal fit and you can't floor or bottom fix, you would need to put a piece of angle to fit that bottom mount bracket like you're fitting it on face. And at that point there, your bottom locking bolts can lock in. Obviously, the great thing about locking bolts is the consumer can lock them in They locate nicely into that bottom rail. And what we've got is an awning that's now sitting nice and taut. People love that with their awnings of any description. With screen, it's a great fabric for being able to put under a little bit of tension and get it taut. This is the sort of effect you'd get as well if you were having a torque setting motor like a Logia motor. The solar motor will do the same thing for you. That Photon 1 motor will allow you to have locking bolts, lock them off, and tension the motor up quite nicely. So it's always a good selling feature, having locking bolts. You do also have the option of ordering hold-down straps as well. The straps obviously will be fitted to a black plastic insert which is fitted below the bottom rail. So what that would mean, if you want hold-down straps, you're not going to be able to get that bottom rail all the way to the bottom, whereas locking bolts you'll be able to. But sometimes hold-down straps are a better option if you're bringing it down to a railing or bringing it down halfway to a point where you want to lock it off. But the straps are designed to hold it down directly vertical. Straps should not be pulled off to the side to an angle. They're meant to pull straight down. So that's another option there for Evo. Look, that concludes the installation for the Evo Cable product. It's a reasonably straightforward product to fit. Obviously, the bulk of the time, I think, for installers is probably getting the fixings into the substrate they're working with, and then the awning comes together very quickly. As I said, you can put a headbox on this product. You can overroll the fabric. You can do it like this. You can just have an open roll cable, which we predominantly have. And Trevor, I know, I guess with this product in this configuration as it is, an Evo open roller, where would be the, I guess, ideal applications for this product?
Barry, I suppose the most common two situations are situations where the customer requires something that's not obtrusive, because with the STC you have a channel, but you see that channel whether the awning's up or down. The beauty of the stainless steel cables, of course, is that they completely disappear from sight, almost. You have to be quite close to notice them. At any distance, they're not there. And of course, the other really big thing with this, if you're trying to cover a large expanse of glass where there's nowhere really to fix onto a wall, or you're on an overhang of an awning and the fixing points are back behind you, As long as you can top fix and then fix to the floor, then you have, absolute ease of installation with this product. Whereas with a channeled awning, like our STC, you have to have a wall or a post or something to fix that too.
So the cable fitted top and bottom. You don't need other fixings in the drop of the awning, whereas Trev's saying with a channel awning and STC, you do. So that's it, guys. Any comments or questions you'd like us to cap off for you? If not, we'll finish the session there if there's no questions coming through over the next minute or so.